Okay, so I'm excited about this week's lesson because I think this is going to be a big breakthrough for those of you that are struggling with using scales, and especially the pentatonic scales. That's what we're going to be talking about. But how do you kick off a solo? Where do you go with this information? Do you start in the middle of the scale? Do you start at the beginning? Which string do you use? All of that stuff. And I want to show you an easy way to look at the pentatonic scales, both major and minor pentatonic scale, and how to connect them both back to a single note. If you can identify the note for the key of the song, you can pull your pentatonic scale, both major and minor, from that one note. This is kind of a cool way of getting around the fretboard. It's a different way of looking at pentatonic scales as opposed to the whole pattern thing where we've got the 5 patterns. I'm not saying that the pattern thing is bad. I still think it's a great way to organize the fretboard. But this is a different approach, and one that can kind of get you going a little bit faster maybe in some ways. It'll definitely get you going across the fretboard in a much faster and easier way. So in this video, we're going to break all of that down. I'll give some examples at the end of this as well. I did tab out a little example song, which has the tablature and a jam track, and I'll demo that at the very end of this video so you can see what that is. If you'd like to get the tab and the jam track for that, you can get those things by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for ML121. All right, so when it comes to the pentatonic scales, what we typically do is we kind of box ourselves into these patterns, and I'm talking about that would be pattern 1. And notice when I played that, I played across all 6 strings, but I stayed in one little region of the fretboard. And so if I went to pattern 2, which is right next door, I would play it like that, same kind of thing though. I'm going across all 6 strings this way. And the thing I don't like about the patterns is they don't connect visually. Like what I just played for pattern 2 doesn't look anything like what I played for pattern 1. And when I go to pattern 3, it doesn't look like pattern 1 or 2 either. And each one is its own thing. And so it seems like kind of a lot to memorize. But in actual fact, if we boil down what the pentatonics are, they're just 5 notes. It's either 5 notes from your major scale or 5 notes from your natural minor scale. We've eliminated 2 of the notes from both of those scales, which can be problematic. That's where the pentatonic scales come from. Anyway, you didn't need a history lesson, but let's get right into what we're going to do here. So we're going to be looking at the key of B, and I picked the key of B because it's right in the middle of the fretboard and there's no open strings. I thought this would be perfect. You're going to be able to translate everything we're going to do here and play this in any key. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify all the B notes I have across the fretboard. And there's 6 strings on the guitar, so I should be able to find 6 B notes. I should be able to find a B on every one of those strings. Now, to some of you, it's like, no problem, I already know how to do that. And some of you will struggle with that. You don't have your fretboard memorized, but let me show you a really easy way to get there if you know your shapes from the cage system. So if I play my B chord using the E shape, inside of this shape here, I've got a B note on the 6th string, I've got a B note on the 4th string, and a B note up here on the 1st string. So that's 3 of the 6 B notes in this one little container. Okay, now the next place that we can find B notes is out of the A shape. So I play my B chord using the A shape, and I've got a B note here on the 5th string, and then I've got one up here on the 3rd string. So that's 5 of the 6 Bs that we have, and you can see they're in these 2 containers, one container here and one container here. The last B note would be on the 2nd string. And actually, your open 2nd string is a B, so that's your B string. But we're talking only fretted notes just to make this sort of simple here. So that's your B note there as well. So you've got on the 6th string, you've got the 5th string, you've got your 4th string, you've got your 3rd string, you got your 2nd string, and then you've got your 1st string. Those are all the B notes, at least this side of the 12th fret. Anytime you go past the 12th fret, you're just repeating yourself in a different octave. So that's the first thing, is just identify those B notes. Why am I identifying those B notes? Because those are going to be my anchors. We're going to be playing a blues in the key of B, and so as long as I can find a B note, I can play my major or minor pentatonic scale off of that B note. Here's how that works. We're going to start with our index finger, and we're going to play on the 6th string. We're going to play our B note there. And make sure you're using your index finger for that. You'll see why as we get into this. But here's the pattern. Notice what we're going to do is we're going to skip a fret. So you can call this like, just think of it as a skip a fret. Every time we play a note, we're just skipping a fret. We're never going to be skipping 2 frets. We're just going to be skipping a fret. So we have a note here. We have a note here. See, we skipped a fret. And then we're going to go up again and skip a fret. So those are 3 notes played on that 6th string. And notice I played the first one with my index finger. These other 2 were played with my ring finger. Now we're going to jump up to the 5th string and we're going to play 9, 11. You can see we skipped a fret in between that. So see how everything is sort of symmetrical, sort of a little box pattern? Those are the notes of your B major pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 notes in your pentatonic scale, penta meaning 5. So now watch, this is where it gets cool. From here, we're going to jump up to the 4th string now, and I'm going to use my index finger again. We're going to start it there, and I'm going to use that same pattern. Check this out. Exact same pattern. Skip a fret, then come up to the 3rd string and play 11, and then the 13th fret. So we have, there's your first octave, and we're going to come up here. There's the next octave. Now we're going to jump up to the 2nd string. Now this is where we're going to have to, remember the tuning of the guitar is kind of funky. So on that B string, on that 2nd string, it's tuned down a half step. So we'll have to compensate for that. So I'm going to start there on that B note, which will be on the 12th fret. And so I'm just mentioning that because it doesn't follow the exact same pattern for this one instance here. So, but from here on it will. So check this out. So there it is again, starting from this B note. That's my B major pentatonic scale. All right, so what we have so far is there's 1 octave, another octave, and another octave. All right, so now what I want you to do is you could pause this video if you need to, but just practice playing through that and make sure you stop at the end of those 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop, just so you get that sound in your head. Now we're going to reset it by another B note. Stop and reset it. Here's our other B note. Okay, once you're familiar with that, this is the next level. Now we're going to slide from that 2nd note to the 3rd note with my ring finger. So we're going to play the first note with your index finger, and then watch this. There's a slide, so it's like this. And then we're going to jump up and finish the rest of the scale. So we have, now let's keep going, and we're going to slide every time we're going from that 2nd note to the 3rd note. Let's do it again. Now let's come back down and we'll use that same slide. So practice going up and practice coming down. Now the last level of this is to take out the stops. So now you're gonna, and you can do this with a metronome. Let me show you, I'll do it slowly, but this is what it'll sound like. And notice we just ran out of frets, or we could keep going with that. Now let's come back down. So that's going up 2 octaves and down 2 octaves using that little slidey skip a fret kind of thing, a little boxy pattern. Now let's look at the B note down here. We looked at this E shape. Let's look at the B note here on the 5th string. Same exact pattern. Check it out. And then we jump up a string. Notice I had to compensate on that B string. And then we can keep going. And then we run out of strings there. But same thing. And then you want to be able to come back down. So notice any one of these B notes that I find, I could start with this note. As long as I'm starting on a B note, I can go into that pentatonic scale. And that little slide is just an easy way to kind of get into the next position. Now in just a second, I'm going to show you how we can switch our starting finger and play the minor pentatonic scale off that same B note. So hang on, just bear with me. But before we get to that, think about what you can do with those notes. You don't want it to just sound like a scale. Yes, those are the notes of your pentatonic scale, but remember, you can bend strings, you can slide into strings, and you can apply vibrato to strings. And it's a combination of any of those things which can give you your unique voice with your fingers. The little hammer on there. All of this is played in that major pentatonic scale using this same shape. Notice a bend there? So which notes can you bend? Well, you can actually pretty much bend any of them because they're all just, there's a fret in between, so you can bend one to the next. But that second string, the second note in your scale, that's a really good one for a full bend. You'll just have to kind of play around with those. But to any of those notes you can bend. You can do a full bend or a half bend depending on the kind of how you want to dial it in. There's a half bend. A little bluesier sounding. But that's one way to get around the fretboard using, just finding one note and playing your major pentatonic scale. Isn't that kind of a cool way to do that? You're covering your entire fretboard that way, but you're not thinking about those patterns which are all sort of disconnected. This is I think it sort of flows a little better. Let's look at the minor pentatonic scale using the same kind of technique. So let's start back on our B note here on the 6th string. Now I'm going to start with my ring finger. So that's going to be my first note. And then I'm going to immediately jump up a string if I want to go up the scale. So I'm going to have to jump up to my 5th string. And watch this. So notice that looks similar to what we did for the major pentatonic scale. We skip a fret, skip a fret. So we started here, and it still kind of falls into that box category in my head. And then we're to complete that, that's our last note of our minor pentatonic scale. We'll come up to that 7th fret, 4th string. So we have, so our first octave then looks like that. And then we'll start our second octave. Notice I'm starting with my ring finger, and we follow that same pattern we just did. There's a compensation that happened on that B string, on that 2nd string, and then we do it again from here. And we can do slides on the minor pentatonic as well. The difference is you're sliding between the 3rd and the 4th note. Remember, with the major pentatonic scale, we were sliding between that 2nd and 3rd. That was just a natural place to slide. The natural place to slide on your minor pentatonic would be between your 3rd and your 4th note. So we have 1, 2, 3, slide up to the 4. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. And then we've run out of space. Let's start down here with this B note. Now I'm going to start with my ring finger. I know that's kind of a weird fingering of this, but I'm doing this just to demonstrate this. You might, over time, if you were playing this, you might switch to your index finger. But just check this out. So we're going to have to use our open string behind the nut there to hit that note, to get that little box. There's the slide. And then we'll come to this B note with my ring finger. So it's the same thing. Notice the little compensation we had to make for the B string. And then I end on this B note up here, which is in my E shape. So I've got my minor pentatonic scale. I've got my major pentatonic scale if I start with my index finger. And they're both connected to these chord shapes, really connected, not even chord shapes. The chord shapes are just organizing the notes. We're really connected to a single note. So as long as you can find a B note on your fretboard, you can go immediately into minor or major pentatonic scale. So if I started with this B note, for example, and there was a blues jam track. Actually, I'm going to put on a jam track here in a minute, but check this out. I can go. There's major pentatonic. All the way down to this B, right? And then, if I wanted to play minor pentatonic scale, to blues it up, So I've got the minor version of that as well. And what you end up doing with that, those are all the notes of your major and minor pentatonic scale. There's a lot of our favorite musicians out there that have made entire careers basically off of those two scales and what they can do with them. So now I'm going to put on a jam track and just demonstrate some of this for you so you can hear it in context. Okay, let's start with this note, which is our B note on the 4th string. And notice I'm using my index finger for that. So let's start with our major pentatonic scale. So I just walked right up using that slide up to this B note. And when it's up here, I could keep going up with that pattern. Now if I want to switch into the minor pentatonic scale, I just change my finger. Watch this. Hear how bluesy it sounds? Now I can switch back to major. Let's go back to minor. And then I came back down to this B note down here. See, I can switch back to major. I could play 2 notes at once. Switch it into minor. Now, as far as when to go minor, when to go major, that's totally up to you. I could just stay minor the whole time if I wanted. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's go back to major. There's my B note. Notice I'm hitting that with my index finger. That's just because it puts my hand in position to be able to slide into these notes. There's the 5. I'm doing that bend there on that 2nd note from it. That's a good one to bend. You can also bend the one below it here. So those are, 2 safe notes to bend. But your vibrato, your bends, your slides, that's what gives you your sound. All right, well, are you starting to see this and how cool this technique can be? It can really unlock your whole fretboard, and it really all hinges off one note. You just need to find the note for the key of the song. So we did all this obviously in the key of B. If you wanted to do this over another jam track, just find those notes, and you can use those shapes like I showed you to find the notes. If you don't have everything memorized, just find your E shape and your A shape, and you've got 5 of your notes right there. And those are your starting points, and you can jump into your minor pentatonic scale or your major pentatonic scale, depending on which finger you start with, and following those patterns. If you like this lesson, leave me a comment and let me know, or if you've had any kind of breakthroughs or if this was something new to you, I'd appreciate that. That always helps me. It helps other people too to read that stuff. Or if you've got questions about anything, maybe I wasn't clear about something, feel free to leave that as well. I do read through everything. All right, well, give me a thumbs up for this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done that. I've been doing lessons like this for about 15 years, and I put one out every week, always in depth and always around improvising, just trying to share everything that I've learned. All right, so here's that example lead that takes everything that we talked about and puts it into practice. And remember, you can download both the tablature and the MP3 jam track for this by going to activemelody.com and doing a search for EP121.